Susan Haworth has been providing counseling, coaching, and training to individuals, families, and executives for over 4 decades, so she knows what she's talking about. She holds a bachelor's degree in psychology and 2 master's degrees, one in counseling, the other in management. Susan also has her postmaster's certification in counseling. Susan writes a monthly column for Stepmom magazine called The Stepmom Whisperer. Her book, A Change Would Do You Good, Proven Strategies for Creating the Life You Want, was published in January of 2022. So, Susan, thank you so much for holding this event today. I'm so excited that you're going to talk about your insights about change, what you've learned from writing the book. This is a subject, the subject you discuss changes in your attitudes, changes in work, relationships. All these arenas are places where pretty much all of us have to make changes, but there are real internal roadblocks that stand in our way. I'm also excited to spend time with you on a personal level because I know that whenever I'm around you, I learn and I have fun. So I hope that it's also enjoyable for everyone that has come out tonight. And speaking of which, I just want to thank everyone who joined us today or who's viewing this in the future on a recording.
Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming out of your Zoom boxes. I really appreciate it. I have to just say before we start our conversation that the last in-person presentation that I made was March 7th, 2020. And I came to that presentation with a big canister of wipes because that coronavirus was not going to get me with my wipes. So,
but I'm sure it'd be done in 2 weeks. So
absolutely.
Who was right?
Absolutely.
Listen to the authority. So I'm so excited that since that time, since 2020, you've been on such a journey, and I'm really excited that you wrote a book and published it. I just want to know what inspired you to write a book about change.
Okay, so I have been about change my whole life, as I think you have too. I have changed jobs, I've changed careers, I've changed husbands, I've changed cities, I've changed states, I have changed my mind, and I've changed my hairstyle. So change has always been something that has interested me. And when I decided to write the book, which was in 2019, Leah, you were one of the people who said to me, "Why don't you write a book?" I had been blogging for 5 years, and you said, just put all the blog pieces together and you can have a book. And other people said that to me as well. So I took myself to Green Gulch. You might know that beautiful retreat center, meditation center. And for a week, I wrote. I brought my laptop. I did an outline. I brought all my hundreds of blog pieces, and I was going to weave them all together. And I did that. I wrote and wrote and wrote. And I came home and trashed it all because it made no sense.
I remember that.
It made...
typical fashion, you had really prepared and had a plan.
It made no sense. For me, a blog did not make a book. And because persistence is my middle name, sometimes called other things, I decided that I was going to start all over. And so I decided to take cues from my clients, the issues that they brought to me, and I created an outline based on that. And the how is actually pretty interesting. So that's the why. So I was working on this, on my outline. I was slogging along on my book in 2019. And I met my neighbor, Marnie Curry, on the street one day. She had been working on a book for about 5 years. And we were commiserating about what a slog it was. And she said, or I said, we don't know who said it, why don't we get together and start writing? We can be accountability partners. So we started one morning a week, and we would get together in person, of course, at each other's homes, and we would set goals, and then we would write. We would type it, in our computer. And it was kind of like Piaget's parallel play. We weren't really interacting. We were each doing our own thing. And it worked so well, we decided to up it to 2 mornings a week. And then March 2020 happened, and we said, let's go for it. And so every morning, Marnie and I would Skype each other, and we'd say what our goal was for the morning, and then we would check back 3 or 4 hours later and say what we had done. And we helped each other, although I maintain she helped me more than I helped her. And she finished her manuscript a few months before I did, and then I came and finished my manuscript. I would not have been able to do it without an accountability partner. And the reason I'm saying this to you all is whatever goal you have, if you can find somebody to support that goal, whether it's exercise or eating well, whatever it is, find somebody who can hold your feet to the fire.
Yeah, I meet once a week with my girlfriend Kristen. We walk the lake, and we have a business powwow about our, business goals. And it's like by the end of that hour and a half or whatever, you feel like you've accomplished something. Mm-hmm. So there's that snowball effect. I love that story because that's how great things are accomplished.
That's it.
One step at a time.
Absolutely.
Make the road by walking. So I want to talk about my favorite parts of the book, and I can't tell you how many times I changed my mind about what my favorite part was. At first it was about about neuroplasticity, and you wrote about how we always, everyone knows the phrase, I had a change of heart. Well, our understanding of where thoughts and emotions come from has a history to it, unto itself. It's not that our heart changes, we change our mind, and we can change our mind, and that's very reassuring and inspiring. So that was always my favorite. But I think nowadays my favorite chapter is Feeling Good Enough. It's chapter 3. I think it's very profound. Feeling Good Enough is a chapter... But first, I want to thank you for writing so in-depth about imposter syndrome. That is something that holds so many of us hostage, and it's sneaky. You write about how we all yes but life. Yes, I wrote a book, but I had a lot of help. Yes, I went to college, but I had a lot of help from my tutor. My mom always edited my pages, whatever. Whatever it is, we yes but ourselves, and we diminish our accomplishments. And it highlights the way that we justify holding ourselves prisoner to the status quo instead of making changes. How does this chapter seem to resonate? Have you heard feedback from others? Does it resonate with your readers? If so, I imagine you get a lot of feedback about that. Good enough.
Yeah, that is one of the favorite chapters, and I just did 2 presentations on it, so I know that people are interested in feeling good enough. And who knows...
What does that phrase mean to feel good enough? Is it to feel good enough to make a change? Is it...
It's just in general feeling like whatever you're doing is enough. However you're being is enough. Mm-hmm. And because we're always comparing ourselves to other people, mm-hmm. that it really triggers feeling not good enough. So I think that chapter resonates with everybody. I mean, it's they say 70% of us feel like imposters. I think it's more. So, it's maybe not all the time, but at some point or another, you're going to feel like I blew it and they're going to find me out. Yeah. So that's a popular chapter. Accepting Imperfection, which goes along with not feeling good enough, is another chapter that a lot of people say they like. I've heard from people who say they like artful eating because that's what they're dealing with. And some people like deciding to decide. So there are a variety of chapters. There are 17 of them. So there's something for everybody, I think.
Yeah, it's fun the way it's written.
Thank you.
You start feeling good enough with this amazing quote from Maya Angelou, who's the everything writer. And I thought it was so, it captivated me. It says, "I have written 11 books, but each time I think, uh-oh, they're going to find me out now. I've run a game on everyone, and they're going to find me out." I mean, if Maya Angelou feels like that about her writing, it really drew me in.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you.
Exactly.
I'm wondering, do you have a favorite chapter or strategy from the book?
So, it's like asking a parent who their favorite child is.
I bet every parent has a favorite child. Okay.
And some days, I love them all. I love all my chapters. But some days, I like some of them better than others. And it just depends where I am with it. For example, I really do appreciate the chapter Decide to Decide, especially when I'm working with people who are indecisive. Then it's a great chapter. I was on a podcast and we talked about Dare to be Truthful. And I loved that chapter for that week. And there's another chapter that I thought a lot of people would love because I do, and it's Transforming Envy into Inspiration. But, envy is a hard thing to talk about in public. So maybe that's why people don't say. But I love that chapter occasionally.
Can you give an example of when envy can become inspiration?
Yeah, we talked about comparing ourselves and there's a time and a place for comparing yourself. It helps you, it inspires you to be better. And that's how you transform your envy into inspiration, is you look for ways, you look for the people you envy and you emulate them. And you in a really positive way, rather than putting yourself down for not being who they are or what they have or whatever it is. But my favorite topic, it's not my favorite chapter, but my favorite topic is the last chapter on bouncing forward after disappointment and heartbreak. Because I think that's it. If we are able to bounce forward from all the disappointments that we have, we got it made. So that's currently my favorite.
I really love that. It really, it has a visual feel to it. In fact, when I was reading this book, I found myself thinking that these were words of wisdom that I wanted to impart upon my 15-month-old. She can't speak yet, but she does speak. She can't make decisions yet, but she makes decisions. And I have this silly idea that Change Would Do You Good really should be a kid's book. But I think all good literature, I was wondering if you were to make this into a kid's book. This is a weird one, but go with it. If you were to make it into a kid's book, what would you emphasize?
You're always trying to get me to do more work, Leah.
Yeah.
So write another book. Write another book.
Step outside your comfort zone.
I was a school-based counselor for a number of years. And what I saw is that the students who struggled the most were the ones who could not handle disappointment. And their parents were trying to shield them from disappointment, which is such a mistake.
It plagues our society.
It does. It does. So we need to be able to manage our emotions and to regulate our emotions and to bounce forward. So disappointment, teaching our kids to do that would be a great gift. And that's what I would emphasize in the book.
The narrator be a frog?
Absolutely. A frog, sure.
With some good accessories or something?
A frog bouncing forward.
Earrings,
yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. So, get off of this light topic, but I do think it speaks to a lot of principles that we can carry throughout our life. But sometimes fear can control our behaviors. I think a lot of us are controlled by fear. and to the point that they prevent us from changing, even though we desperately know we need to. And then once the change is made, it's like that thing, that fear that was a material thing that controlled you. It's like it ceases to have power anymore. It's amazing. It's like waking up from a dream. It was never there. Can you talk a little bit about the relationship between fear and change, the interplay of that?
Yeah. Well, fear drives a lot of what we do. And we make a lot of decisions or don't make decisions based on fear. Mm-hmm. So there's a close relationship. We fear changing jobs. We fear getting jobs. We fear starting a relationship. We fear ending a relationship.
Getting deep into relationships.
Exactly. It goes on and on. So deciding to decide is really one of the issues around fear. We feel like we have to have a perfect decision. Mm-hmm. And of course there is no such thing.
Like we'll know it once we make the change.
That's
once
what
it
happens.
Comes to our mind, it's gonna always have an aha moment when we find the right decision.
Exactly. And the worst place to be is on the fence.
We had the coolest conversation recently about that term, being on the fence. It's actually, if you think about, you're climbing up a fence, you're on the top of a fence, you're teetering. That's the last place that you feel stable, solid, but you're in transition from one side of the fence to the other. So you're on the fence, and that feeling of instability, I liken it to fear.
Yeah.
You know, so in order to decide that you're going to get to the other side of the fence, is that to catalyze that change is really powerful. Mm-hmm. Are there parts of the book that if someone out here if that's really resonating with, is there a part of the book that you recommend? Go to chapter such and such
for the fear issue.
It's a hurdle from.
I think that is a theme that runs through the whole book.
Fair
because enough. It's so... and a little bit of fear is good, right? I mean, it's kept us alive.
It's reassuring to hear that.
So a little bit of fear is good. We don't want to just make crazy decisions and hurt ourselves emotionally or physically. So
just being impulsive.
In one of my workshops that I've done, and Paula, you've been in this workshop of Women on the Verge, I asked the question, what would you do if you weren't afraid? Which people are like, oh my God, I'd run off to do this or that. Now, talking about or owning up what you would do if you were afraid doesn't mean you need to do it immediately. It means you need to make plans and have steps toward whatever goal you want. So a little bit of fear is a good thing. It keeps you grounded and it helps you see the big picture. But a lot of fear is what paralyzes you.
I keep on thinking of this book as a toolkit, and maybe I wasn't original in thinking of it as a toolkit, because you actually refer in your trailer for the book to it as a toolkit, and I like that you can pick it up at any point and find a nugget of wisdom. So using that metaphor, is there an order to things? What tools should we make sure that we don't miss, and in what order should we harness those tools from the book?
I think the book, there are 17 chapters, they're short chapters. I think you can pick it up and read any one of the chapters at any point. I do recommend reading the first section first, just because. But it is like a toolkit in that if you need to drill a hole, you don't pick up a hammer. If you need to hammer something with a nail, a screwdriver's not going to work. So it speaks to where you are and what you need. And as I said, some people go right to the eating chapter. Some people go to other chapters. And I think you don't necessarily need to read it chapter by chapter. And you can pick it up whenever you want to.
Yeah. The beginning of the book, I couldn't stop rereading it because it basically said to me, change can happen. And look how much our understanding of thinking has changed over time. So, is there anything that you wish that you'd included that you didn't include in the book?
Every day.
Oh, really?
Every day I hear about research that I think, oh my God, that would have been so great to put in the book. But of course you can't do that. Social scientists are just amazing people, and they're coming up with all kinds of research about human behavior and how we can be better people. And so I'm always thinking about that. But very recently, I came across Kelly McGonigal, who wrote a book called The Upside of Stress. How fabulous is that? And I wish I had included her research and more about stress in my book and normalizing it. Because what she says is it's just another cold, dark night on the side of Everest. Meaning that when you're trying to do big things and good things, you're going to have cold, dark nights and climbing up to Everest. And so I really, really appreciated what she has to say and wished I had included it in my book to normalize stress.
I love that so much.
I do too.
I love that so much.
I do too.
What have I not asked yet that you want to talk about?
Oh, I wanted to read a couple passages.
That would be great.
Yeah. So this is from my favorite chapter or my favorite topic.
Du jour.
That's du jour. It's about bouncing forward. When we expect our lives to stay the same, we're doomed to eventually feel great disappointment. Along with present and future moments of joy, we will experience pain. People get sick and die, relationships fade, and jobs may disappear. Facing the impermanence of life helps us better cope with the inescapable movement of the ground beneath us. Not only are the good times fleeting, but we can take solace in realizing that the bad times can also and will also be transitory. So that's from my current favorite.
Beautifully written.
Thank you, my dear. And I want to talk about self-compassion. So I saved that for a conclusion. I don't know why I did that, but I saved it for the conclusion. Change requires a lot of courage, and it requires overcoming some of your fears, but it also requires self-compassion. So I'd like to read just a passage about self-compassion, because self-compassion sometimes gets a bad rap. Self-compassion requires that we extend the same forgiveness of ourselves that we would extend to others. We must recognize our own struggles and foibles as being emblematic of the human condition. Self-compassion is not the same as self-absorption, nor does self-compassion give us a free pass to be insensitive to others. Tara Brach, author of Radical Acceptance, explains, feeling compassion for ourselves in no way releases us from responsibility for our actions. Rather, it releases us from the self-hatred that prevents us from responding to our life with clarity and balance. And I also want to express some gratitude that I haven't done. I want to express some gratitude to some people in this little audience. So, let's see. Did Kat? All right. Cole Kassir could not be here because he's chasing his dreams in Toronto. But Kat is here, his mother. He did the final design of this book, and he was such a joy to work with. Is Chad here too? Or just you, Kat? Chad! And there's the papa! Thank you so much, and thank you both for your support.
How young is he?
Yes, he is young, and he is amazingly talented. Rachel Cox, my
Artist? Wait, you know Rachel Cox?
I do. I know Rachel Cox.
She's amazing. I have one of her pieces.
She is amazing. Okay, not only is she an amazing artist, she happens to be an amazing daughter, and she did the deepest dive into my book. She did like a deep read that nobody can imagine, and made the book more relevant, found mistakes no one else found, and there were many eyes on this book, on this manuscript. And thank you so much. I love you so much. And my beloved Steve Haworth, my husband, who supported me every step of the way. He let me disappear for days, for weeks, for months. And also did a reading, read my book as well, and made some great suggestions. So thank you so much. And Leah, I want to thank you. Leah is a business owner and a new mom, and when I asked her to do this, she said, "You bet." So thank you.
I'm flattered that you asked.
And I want to thank Books Inc., Ollie, and Larry, and everybody else for doing this. This is an amazing bookstore, as many of you know. Please take time to peruse it. And the holidays are coming up.
I have my little stack of books back here.
Right. And so I guess now we do Q&A, right?
Yeah.
How did you prove your strategies?
Oh, I did not prove them at all, because I am not a social scientist. But
that's what your title says.
in this book, there's like chock full of resources. I have
So much research went into the writing of this book.
So it's not my research, but I cited everybody. And you can look it up. You know, there's a bibliography, but there are also footnotes galore.
Yeah.
That was a good question, Eva. She's going to repeat the question.
Yeah, so if I understand correctly, the question is, do you have a definition of feeling good enough? And what was the second?
What does it entail?
And what does that entail? What does it mean from Susan's experience of writing the book, what does it mean to feel good, to be good enough?
So this is how I heard your question, when is feeling good enough valid and when isn't it? Is that it?
Got it.
Yeah.
A barometer.
Yeah.
Right?
So when you're not prepared and when you're incompetent, that is not imposterism. That is not being good enough.
It's fuck-upism.
Right. So feeling confident is not a substitute for competence.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's not self-delusion. It's
It isn't.
Good enough.
It isn't. And, you know, and without a little self-doubt,
Yeah.
without that, we are arrogant SOBs. Right? And we all know some of those people. We're not going to name them right now. But, yeah, a little self-doubt is really good. A lot of self-doubt, not so much.
There's a old Talmudic saying, if one person calls you a donkey, ignore them. But if a second person calls you a donkey, ignore them as well. But if a third person calls you a donkey, buy a saddle. So it's good to have people around you that'll call you out, right?
It's true. One of my new favorite expressions for myself is, it's not all about me. But some of it is about me. So if you experience rejection or whatever, it's not all about me, but some of it could be about me, and probably is.
That's another book.
It's another book.
What other great questions or reflections do people have? Because I saw the eyes lighting up while we were talking.
I would like to make a comment.
Oh, comments are good.
Huge difference between gratitude and appreciation.
Yeah.
And you mentioned gratitude, which is always kind of looking over your shoulder at the past, but appreciation is being in the moment.
Ah, thank you.
Wow.
Thank
That's
you.
great.
Well, I appreciate you.
So this wonderful audience member, Anne, is that her name? Anne, brought up the point that she made the difference between appreciation and gratitude. That gratitude is kind of looking over your shoulder, whereas toward the past, and appreciation is in the present or in the future. The book's called "A Change Would Do You Good." So, what are the benefits? How would it do you good?
Growth. That's it. We don't grow by staying the same, right? And we don't reach our dreams, and we don't climb Everest. So we always have to push ourselves. And the feeling good enough, we talk a lot about the cognitive preparation and analyzing. A lot of us get stuck in analyzing, why am I doing this? But we need to take action. And we need to pair that. The awareness comes first, and then the action follows. And that's how you get to where you need to go.
I work day in and day out with seniors, many of whom society would think of just go somewhere quiet and, ride out your last few years. And my job is caregiving. And I find that the secret to keeping people, the secret to longevity, really, is to maintain relevance, how to embrace change. That when people are willing to rethink things around them and embrace change, that they see themselves more. We see ourselves more wholly when we're willing to change. And so we're more willing to engage in our care, and our quality of life increases.
Yeah.
So change can come in a lot of different forms. It can be visiting someplace you've never been to before, having a conversation with someone other than same old. So there are, especially after COVID, there are a lot of people who've become isolated. And so switching it up, meeting new people, walking a different route, having a conversation with someone you see all the time at the coffee shop, finally, that's change too.
Absolutely.
And that does you good.
That does you good. Natasha had a question. She's hiding.
I am hiding.
Such a good question. Natasha wanted to know, is there something in the process of writing this book that sparked an idea for kind of the next thing? Did I capture the essence?
Project, the next
Yeah,
book,
because
the
this is
next
a woman
seminar.
who's evergreen. So I'm sure, I don't know if you're ready to talk about it. But it's just us.
It's just us. Yeah. So first I have to write that children's book, right?
Bouncing forward.
Bouncing forward. Actually, you heard...
Anyone knows any great children's book artists?
Yeah.
Come see her
Yeah.
after the show. Yeah.
You do? Okay. We'll talk. So, actually, Natasha, you know that I write for Stepmom magazine, and that my plan is that's my next book, is to write a book about step-parenting for step-parents, and because I am known as the Stepmom Whisperer. So it's an advice column. What could be more fun than giving people advice? So people send me questions and I respond, and it's a monthly column. So my plan is to write that book.
Well, whatever you're going to do is going to be entertaining, funny. You're going to teach people.
No pressure there.
Well, no, it's just what you do. So thank you so much for sharing your insights into the content of the book, and the how it came to be. Does anyone have any more questions? Yeah.
I had one question.
She wanted to know if beyond what Susan had planned on writing and already knew she was going to write, was there anything that surprised her that she learned from writing the book?
Almost everything. It was... This book saved my sanity because I wrote it all during COVID. I mean, that's where the bulk of it was written. I had started in 2019. But the research that I found that other people did, it was mind-blowing. And most everything I've put in here, I mean, there were a few research studies that I knew about already, the marshmallow thing, but a lot of it was just amazing and uncovered. I learned.
How did you research during COVID? I'm sorry to cut you off, but how did you physically do that? You didn't go into libraries.
No, and this is where Marnie Curry came in because she is a researcher and she's affiliated with the UC system. So when I could find books, you can find a lot of stuff, a lot of research online on your own, but there are some that you can't find unless you have access to the periodicals and all of that only university people did. And so I would ask her I'd find somebody cited somewhere, and I'd ask her to find me the primary source. And she would do it in about 30 seconds. So, it was, I learned so much. The process was really great for me. I mean, there were some really frustrating points too. But the process, because I just learning about all of this and then putting it together, that was so rewarding. At one point, I thought, I'm done. I don't need to even turn it into a book. Because I can tell you, this is a subject for another discussion, the process of writing was very rewarding. The publishing, not so much. That was a real drain for me. But I did learn tremendous things. Thanks for asking that.
Yeah, so this is a great question. So when you're writing a book, does it take a lot of focus and concentration? I imagine it must have been draining. What was that?
I'm saying that sounds good.
Yeah.
It does take a lot of focus, and you can get in the zone, though, and that's what happened to me.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, you can get in the zone and just start writing. And, of course, the first draft is shitty, so you have to keep writing.
And have a lot of self-compassion. I remember when you went on that retreat to Green Gulch, I think a lot of people would be too disappointed. I think a lot of people would turn around after they put in so much, invested so much into going on a retreat and writing a book and realizing this isn't going to work. But the fact that you persevered, it seemed like a lot of play while you were actually, once you got going, but there were a lot of hurdles before then.
There were. And, I had my cold, dark nights on the side of Everest. I've got to tell you that. So there were moments where I thought, I can't do this anymore. I hate this book. And but then I kind of plowed through it, and
You did it.
I did it. And of course, this, in the rearview mirror, it was joyful. But there were some cold, dark nights. That's for sure. Yeah.
Like any great accomplishment. Well, thank everybody so much.
Thank you.
For coming out. This was fun.
It was. Let's do this
really
again.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's give a hand to Susan Haworth.
Thank you. Woo!